Hello friends, David Miller here. I want to share some of my favorite clips from INFP creatives and their thoughts on the creative process, why we make what we make, dealing with our intense emotions, and their unique approaches to life in general. It's inspiring stuff to me, and I hope it will be for you as well.
I think this is true of all of the arts. If they're not engaged, if they're not about upsetting you in some way, and I know that sounds harsh and confrontational, but if art doesn't surprise you, then all it is doing is reassuring you and reconfirming your prejudices. Most popular culture is, or a lot of it, is saying everything's okay. Everything's okay with the way that you think about things, with the way that you see the world. Everything's okay. Isn't it nice? Look, a butterfly. Whereas what art should do is, it's a way of talking without language. It's a way of speaking almost directly, heart to heart, mind to mind. That it's a way of combating loneliness. That all of us can think that we are isolated, that oh, it's only me who thinks these things. It's only me who feels these things. It's only me who has ideas like that. There must be something wrong with me. Then you see a piece of art and it makes you less alone. It makes you realise, hey, somebody else had that idea which I almost had but couldn't express that well, or it's a thing that connects human beings. That's what art's for. It's not there as a commodity and something to bring in huge amounts of money that are as inflated as most football players' wages. It's a similar thing, and that's not what art is for.
Once I committed to what path I was going to take, it made it a lot easier than when I was wishy-washy. And so I think there's something to be said for that. And again, like going back to questioning, just because you're not, I felt squeaky clean when I looked at Joe Strummer, or
it's all relative, right?
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that I can't write something profound or do something great.
At a way too early age, I became kind of a hack. Like, the work that I did was just done so fast and so thoughtlessly. And it wasn't until I started discovering underground comics that I realized what an artist is supposed to be. It's not like just a producer of content. You actually are looking for things about yourself that you want to express,
Unlike a lot of people, I don't have like a big beef or like stigma around not being 20. Everyone who's 20, I'm like, peace. See you if you're lucky, not 20. I mean, the idea that we have this attitude toward the good fortune of being able to like live a life and have that be something that it like drags us down is such a backwards way of looking at life. And I find it like actually find it rude to yourself and the luxury and, good fortune and privilege we have to live where we do and all the million reasons that we aren't dead. I really feel like as a musician, as an artist, as a human being, I've gotten stronger, better writer, better singer, better athlete, better friend. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't really feel like dragged backwards by those things. It's not kind of like we had it and now we're just kind of trying to simulate it. It's like everything, the meaning of this band has always been really principled and ethical, and like we do things according to principles that mean something to us. And it may mean that we don't always stand at the top or at the front of the pack, but the people who come to our shows, like, they know us, and there's such a beautiful connection. And I feel like the show we did last night is like, it's better than our last show. Everything is constantly going forward. Yeah. So there is no eventually, because like, it's now. You don't want to be always like, okay, so what was it? Your perfect moment, the perfect you that you're trying to retain, like you're going to get plastic surgery to look like what? When you were 32, 24, like what, when is it? Yeah. To me, once you subscribe to that way of thinking, that is the narrative of your life. Yeah. And you're basically ensuring a sense of decline forever.
Back in 1962, or 61 or 62, around in them, when you and Rosenquist and Lichtenstein all were working very independently of each other, but evolving a same kind of attitude. Does that seem odd to you, that you all began to look at the world in the same way?
I think we just read a lot of comic books, and it just happened to come out then.
Well,
because comic books make things the way they are really today. I mean, the way things happen in New York now, it's like being in a Western movie.
The whole reason why I wanted to make an album in the first place was because I was so tired of trying to explain my personality to people. I was so uncomfortable with the social situations that I really, really thought that if I had a CD of songs, that I could just have that, put that out in the world, and then everyone would understand me, and then I would have all the friends in the world.
You can tell your friends because the ones that support you in doing that are your true friends. And if the person who's not supporting you is, I've had several clients in my career whose spouses did not support them. And, my advice is divorce your spouse. I'm sorry. I take this seriously. This is a profession. This is a vocation. And if, someone close to you is telling you don't do it, it's selfish. You need to get somebody else close to you, who will encourage you. Because all the monumental great things in life, I think, are done by people who go for it and who are not afraid of taking a chance, and who are therefore supported by a few true friends, or loved ones who tell them to do it.
I would go down to my lovely little gazebo at the bottom of the garden, sit down, and I'm absolutely allowed not to do anything. I'm allowed to sit at my desk. I'm allowed to stare out at the world. I'm allowed to do anything I like, as long as it isn't anything. I'm not allowed to do a crossword, not allowed to read a book, not allowed to phone a friend, not allowed to, make a clay model of something. All I'm allowed to do is absolutely nothing or write. And what I love about that is I'm giving myself permission to write or not write. But writing is actually more interesting than doing nothing after a while. You sort of sit there and you've been staring out the window now for 5 minutes and it kind of loses its charm. You're going, well, actually, might as well write something. And it's hard. As a writer, I'm more easily, I'm distractible. And I think it's a really just a solid rule for writers. It's like, yeah, you don't have to write. You have permission to not write. But you don't have permission to do anything else.
It's always better to answer through your work the things you don't like in a piece of media. If you dislike the movies that are being made, make your own. Show the world what you want to do, what you think this medium should be. And I find that much more creative than simply putting it down and complaining about it. It's a more active, fascinating role to take. So the advice is, if you want to direct, and even easier, if you want to write. I think that writing is one of the only things that can be done with very little resources. And even if you die and you were unpublished, you still have a chance. It's truly, you cannot do that with directing. You need other people, you need a little bit of help, you need at least an actor in front of the camera, but I think and I produce a lot of first-time filmmakers, but I don't produce all first-time filmmakers that approach me, and I say, look, if I say no and you give up, I'm sorry to tell you, but it's the wrong job for you, because you live with rejection for decades, sometimes as a director, and you end up making the movie you want to make. So if I say no, that doesn't mean I'm right or I'm wrong. You just say, fuck him, I'll show him later. I'm going to make it, and that fat bastard is going to have to say, I was so wrong, and hit himself in the head because he didn't do it. And I think that's the thing to do, is like, show us, don't tell us, do the things. And if you do them wrong, but you do them in your own terms, that's how I define success, failing in your own terms.
So, the question was, how do you gauge success now? Or does it not matter that, having had so much of it?
Well, somebody asked me that yesterday, funnily enough, and my feeling is I gauge success by the fact that, look, I could stand in the street and sing and make enough money to go home and buy the dinner.
Yes.
And to me, that's success. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also that, can you come through the music business after years and still be you? Do you know, can you still be yourself and keep your soul and keep true to what your highest ideal was when you were a teenager and you wanted to sing, and what was your real reason for wanting to sing? And I always say to people, I teach singing now in Ireland, and for teenagers and that, and I always say one thing which I've felt all my life, is that there's only one reason a person should ever make a record, and that is that you're going to go mad if you don't, right? And if you're thinking about anything else, success or anything else, then you shouldn't be doing it, really. Do you know what I mean? So success is, can you stay yourself, keep your soul.
I get that,
and can you stand in the street
because
and make a living,
a lot of people do consider they gauge their life on their success, and it's a bit
material
of
success. Sadly, well, sadly that's the way the world is, isn't it? We're all brought up to believe material success and everything's where it's at, and the music business has gone very that way, hasn't it, with all these shows about Pop Idol and blah blah, and it's all about.
My question for you is, what are some suggestions you can offer for staying motivated during times like we're living in right now? Thanks.
Maybe one thing is just to chase what you're excited about. I think a lot of it comes down to momentum. It's kind of physics, isn't it? Like it's a lot easier to stay in motion if you're already in motion. So if you're chasing things that you're excited about, then you don't even realize you're putting in that what you're doing is work. And then you can tackle stuff that might be a little harder or more ambitious.
This interior image of something that is absolutely perfect, and that's your signpost and your guide. You'll never get there, but without it, you won't get anywhere.
When you start out to write a book, do you start out with that image?
It's not so much a conscious thing, I don't think. It's just you always have that hope that today I'm going to do something better than I've ever done.
There's the hope.
That's for hubris.
That's good. So do you write methodically? Do you have a schedule? I've talked to many, many different writers over the years, and no. Or does it just come to you and you write it whenever it comes?
Faulkner once was asked if he wrote every day or only when he was inspired, and he said, "I only write when I'm inspired, but I'm inspired every day." You have to take it seriously. You have to treat it as the work that you do. Some people say, do you plot everything out? And I said, no, that would be death. I mean, you can't plot things out. You just have to trust in, wherever it comes from.
It was right after I came back from Egypt, and I took first time I ever actually took a major break, and I went somewhere significant. And it really taught me a lot and changed a lot in me. And just the fact of doing it alone was a big deal. So here's what it says. Most of us take about 16 breaths per minute. That means we typically breathe 960 times an hour, or around 23,000 times a day. During my 2 glorious weeks of silence, I had more than 322,000 opportunities to breathe my way into a new existence. One exhale at a time, I let go of the urge to twist myself into a pretzel, trying to live up to others' expectations. I let go of the belief that if I stepped away, nothing would be there when I returned. And in place of that notion, I inhaled liberation. I inhaled the boundless brilliance and the boundlessness that once guided the Egyptians in crafting monuments of greatness. That's what 14 days of solitude can bring. Space to breathe, time to reflect, a chance to reimagine what your life can look like. When freedom tapped me on my shoulder, I answered loud and strong. Back in New York, my team immediately noticed the shift in me. I need 2 weeks off to myself before and after every tour, I announced. And when, ahead of a press day in Japan, my manager showed me the proposed schedule, it was crammed with wall-to-wall interviews, I pushed back. I need a 15-minute break every hour to keep from turning into a robot, I said. I began using the single most powerful word a pleaser can ever speak. No.
Well, I was just having the best life a person can have because I was living in Iceland, which start off with is, for me, like paradise on earth.
Why is that?
It's just got this gorgeous combination of a completely rural, raw nature and then the modern things that you need. It's perfectly balanced. And then all my friends and all the people I've loved and I've known since I was born were living like in a 5-minute walk radius around me. Yeah. I had a little house, cook meals for people, and we would drink wine, and then once in a while I would tour the world with the sugar cubes, and it would be just right. And then I realized that these songs that I've been writing since I was a child, when I go on my walks, and always just kept them as my own private sanctuary, like to sort of remain sane kind of thing, that I had to kind of, I guess, share them. Because once in a while I would be alone at night and open a book, or I would get a craving that I couldn't understand, and it would be sort of satisfied with the right film or with the right book or with the right CD. And I would slowly start to read the back of the things and realize that actually the people who made those things, they sort of sacrificed almost everything to be able to give these things to me. So there I was sitting in my comfortable armchair, having the most gorgeous life one can think. And when I needed that sort of craving satisfied, I was just reach out for the right book or something. And I was almost 26 at that time, and I felt it was my time to make that sort of a risk.
It took practice. When pleasing has become your MO, it's tough to consistently begin holding your boundaries, but it gets easier the more you do it. You start to realize that the earth doesn't fall off its axis because you turned down a speaking engagement or even a movie role. The world keeps right on spinning, and the gift you give yourself is more energy to do the work you actually want to be doing. Saying no doesn't make you less of an artist or a human being. It makes you a stronger and more purposeful one.
I suppose the first thing is whether you have a natural curiosity, whether you are actually interested in things, whether there's something that you really, really are interested in, and you think about nothing to do with television. I mean, whether it was chess or whether it was chimpanzees is neither here nor there. That you're interested in continually in new things and new topics, and then an ability, I think, to see a story, to see a narrative, to see a way in which you start talking about something and the viewer wants to know what's going to happen next. And that's an indefinable thing. It's very difficult. You can't teach that in a way. I mean, you either have it or you don't, I think. I would say, if someone wanted to start, okay, get yourself a camera, home video, go and make something. If you're in the natural history game, make a program about some simple animal, a mouse, a worm, or a pigeon. It's something you can be sure is going to be there. And try and make a story about it and see whether you really want to spend your time lying on your stomach, waiting for the worm to come out of the hole, or whatever it is. And try and work out how you're going to tell a story about a worm. Actually, nobody's made a program that I know about. I've made a program about sequences, but nobody's made the program. It could be very interesting. You know, what happens? I mean, come to think of it now, what about lighting? Can worms see? Are they going to be put off by a light? How long will I have to wait before? Is there a good time when I can expect the worms to come out? How do they copulate? You know, and how would I get the shot that would show it? Well, those are the kind of questions which you're going to have to ask in reality, admittedly not with them, but if I'd asked them about a mouse, which perhaps is a more practical thing to do, that'd be quite interesting, you know. How do I know when the mouse is going to come out? How do I persuade it to come out? How do I adjust it to the light? What do I do about low light? What is the story that we're talking about? Am I going to film it over a period of a day or a week or a fortnight or what? And if you start doing that and then putting it together, you'll begin to learn something about television and television storytelling.
What's the common denominator between magic or esoterics and art? Because you always say it's super closely intertwined.
Well, I think that they're the same thing. I think that when we discovered consciousness and language, then art and magic were part of the same equation. That art and magic are both concerned with taking something which does not exist and then bringing it into manifestation. This is not done by, I don't know, saying a few words and throwing some powders into a brazier and making gestures. No, it's done by working for a couple of years at something really, really hard. Say you've had an idea for a book. That doesn't exist anywhere except in your mind. It is less than a phantasm, unless you bring all of your personality and your abilities to bear and are prepared to go through however long it takes of serious hard work. And then at the end of that, you'll have Jerusalem. You will have brought something into materialization that would not have existed otherwise.
Okay, so for you, magic is actually creating something from consciousness mind to real life, like, but not doing rites and...
Sometimes there'll be rites involved as well, not for a number of years now. Back when I started, because I think that I needed these spectacular results to convince me that there was something worth pursuing in all of this. And back then, yeah, we had some unusual experiences.
I really felt like, screw the whole career part of it, personally, it just didn't jibe with my principles. And I thought, as a human being growing and getting wiser, if I give in like that right now, I'm gonna be it's just the death of me on so many levels.
Understandable. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you look at it, if you just do a story about a normal guy who is completely normal, and in the center, maybe you're not talking to, that guy is fairly self-contained. That guy is not going to reveal necessarily too much about himself. Though, as I say this, normal people also reveal a lot about themselves. And normality is perhaps the weirdest thing of all.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, for me, as someone who kind of like just 40 years of a job that he despises, in a marriage that he despises, with kids that despise him, i.e. most of the world's population.
Yeah.
To me, that's the weirdest thing possible. So my characters, compared to them, are completely normal.
Yeah.
One of the things you learn is that when you're a freelancer, you get you go through all kinds of weird emotional stuff that has to do with getting paranoid and, and whereas when you're on staff is so full of activity and the general shenanigans of being in an office place and everyone's busy and there's a stack of stuff and you're like, I'll get to that next week. Meanwhile, the freelancer is sitting home thinking, they hate me, So I think it was more an emotional thing of learning the difference between, how busy and crazy the workplace is. And then as a freelancer, just don't take it personally.
I've kind of learned to kind of shy away from the political aspect of life because I have no ambition to be a politician or anything like that. I really enjoy singing. I love being a singer. I enjoy being a mom. I enjoy what I'm doing, but I don't want to save the world because I don't think I really can. I think the world will always have its problems. I just think it's in our own nature to destroy ourselves as the human race. We're quite destructive.
Okay, but on
really.
A personal basis, you could have destroyed yourself. I mean, it got that bad,
And I guess that's probably why I said, I better look after myself and stop worrying about everybody
How
else.
bad did you get? I mean, I know you were reported to be anorexic. Were you ever...
No, I was never actually anorexic or bulimic or anything weird like that. I was just really clinically depressed, I was just having spent no time at home and having lived for so long in buses with men and this isolation in hotel rooms all the time and this hectic schedule. It just did get to a point where it was I kind of wondered if anybody really cared about me as a person. And when I said I'd like to take a break, it was oh no, you can't. Because we had committed to this tour. It was a
You're a
6
commodity.
million tour or something, yeah. And you get to that point where, you know, you go into interviews or you meet people and they would be telling you things about yourself and you'd be like, is that right? You know, you're so confused. Eventually it was like, it was a bit strange.
What did you
like,
turn to? I've read that you actually turned to drink. Is that was that the chemical of your choice to try and ease the pain?
Because it was safe enough, you know. I knew that I wouldn't be having any waffly kind of, you know, visionary extraordinaires or anything. You know, with alcohol, at least you just get blotto and fall asleep, you know. You wake up with a bit of a head, like, but, you know, to me, I wasn't into kind of chemicals or the mushrooms or anything like that. I just thought they were all... I wasn't really into any of that. I was like, no, I'm not taking that, man.
Did you have to actually go through the whole medical thing and get antidepressant pills, or...?
Yeah, I went through the whole medical thing, and I went to not a psychiatrist, but a psychologist, which is kind of different. And the psychologist I saw, he saw an awful lot of celebrities, and he was telling me about it, and he was telling me, this is quite normal. Usually after a certain amount of years of exposure, most celebrities get like this. And I was like, yes, so I'm normal. And he was like, yeah, you're normal. And I was like, yes, because I'm not actually mad. He was going, no, you're okay.
And you got straightened out?
Yeah, he just said, you know, you need to kind of take a break from the band and you need to just go away and just find out what it's like to be an ordinary person and just be an ordinary person for a while, just get away from it all.
You know, I on the side, I was working on music and a lot of home recording, but that was just because it was art and that's what made me healthy.
Right.
You know, that was my, you know, it was the place that I could, you know, make use of these tricky emotions, you know, and even just to entertain myself, but to make something out of, you know, the shit, you know, the shit that was burning in my heart, the shit that was clouding my head, you know, just give it a place and turn it into something, you know, and that could be through painting, that could be through poetry, literature, you know, even activism, going back to what we said earlier, because then you're working with other people for a greater good and you feel like you found a special purpose.
Totally.
So, but without any of that stuff, and when you find yourself kind of under the lion's paw and you can't seem to dig yourself out, it's really important. Hopefully you're lucky enough to either have a teacher, a counselor, a friend.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a boss that would listen to some of your troubles, you know. You know, there's less of a stigma as you were talking with Duff the other day, and he said back when he was 16 and he had his first panic attack, you know, you didn't really want to admit that. In fact, his older brothers had it because he came from that huge family of 8 kids or something.
Yeah, exactly.
But they didn't really give him any warning, and because it wasn't cool or maybe less manly or you know, whatever. I think a lot of that stigma is gone. And one other thing I'll say is, you know, you're feeling isolated, you don't know how to reach out.
Yeah.
You got to remember that some people, it actually makes them feel good to be able to help.
You touched on that idea of isolation, and I know that's something that you've talked about a lot, and you and I have talked about. I remember being at a PJ show in Madrid a couple summers ago, and you were talking to the crowd and said, like, if any of you feel alone, you know, or you feel like you're at a point where it's never going to get better, I've felt that way, and it does get better. It always gets better. And that's something that I've thought back on over the last couple of years since you've said that.
But did I also say that it will get better? It always gets better.
Yeah.
And then it will get worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll get better.
Right. The ebbs and flows.
It'll get worse.
Yeah.
And it's part of the deal, you know. You could kind of train your heart and your mind to go, look, this is another rough time. And it could come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It could just come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But be like, okay, this might be the worst I've ever felt. Right. Or this might be the hardest thing I've ever had to go through.
Right.
I think, you know, it's hanging in. It's just, it's basic and it's so much easier said than done. But it's really just sometimes just hanging in there and maybe not, you know, doing anything drastic or hurting yourself when you're when you're down.
As a Beatle, we made it, and there was nothing to do. We had money, we had fame, and there was no joy. And then I met Yoko, and she was making it as an avant-garde artist, and we both tried to find something we had in common, a common goal in life, because she couldn't rock and roll with me, and I couldn't avant-garde with her. I mean, we can, but that's what we thought at the time. So we decided the thing we had in common was love, and from love came peace. So we decided to work for world peace.
And how do you do that?
We do it by the advertising method. We believe that today's society, advertising is the thing politicians use and commercial companies use. The Beatles use it. John and Yoko should use it. Our product is peace. Of less words and more peace. I think the only way to do it is Gandhi's way. And that's non-violent, passive, positive, or whatever they called it those days. You know. We're selling it like soap, you know. And you've got to sell and sell until the housewife thinks, oh, well, there's peace or war. That's the two products. Peace.
Peace.
Peace. Peace. Peace. Peace. Peace. Peace. Peace. Peace. Peace. Peace.